Hello, my name's Fred McNeil, and thank you for watching QACTV 7. We've started a new TV program called Thank You for Serving. There are 3,353 veterans who live, veterans who live in Queen Anne's County. Some of them served 2 years, some of them served 20 years, some served even longer. And we're getting one to come on each week, one veteran, talk about their experiences, and you get to know your neighbors who served in the military. I've got a good friend of mine today, Bob Bailey. Bob, thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
Now,
my
Bob,
pleasure.
your reputation precedes you. That's warn the audience. Retired PG County policeman.
Correct.
You were lieutenant, is that right?
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Right.
Noted singer in the Mother of Sorrows choir.
Yeah, don't lie to these folks.
Okay, all right. Protector of the new courthouse during the Christmas parades.
That is correct, yeah.
And join us on many occasions for coffee at the Veterans Coffee House. You've got it
Always
made.
a good time, yeah.
And on top of that, thank you for serving in the United States Air Force. Now, Bob, how about this? We'll go back. We'll start in the very beginning. Born and raised where?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, so you're a Maryland resident.
Maryland resident. And my wife is also a Maryland resident. Both of us from Baltimore.
And she isn't questioning that you're hanging around with me?
No, she questions that a lot, actually, yes. But born and raised in Baltimore, and I went to...
Let's go before. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Woodlawn Senior High School.
Now, were you a sports guy, a theater guy?
Yeah, I was kind of a jock. I mean, I ran cross country like you did.
Build, you had the build for a runner.
And played on the tennis team.
Okay.
And was pretty
so
much
an
in
athlete,
track and
an
all
athlete
that
in
kind
high
of stuff.
school.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Graduate from high school.
Graduated from high school and went to Catonsville Community College for 2 years.
All right. Now, what'd you get your AA in?
I didn't actually get the degree; just did 2 years.
Were you
but
doing
I
law enforcement?
I wanted to go on. No, I wanted to go on and become a meteorologist.
Really?
So I wanted to go to Florida State. They had a good meteorology program.
Yeah. Do you know Dr. Tom Walsh, who's in the Orphans Court in town?
Heard of him.
He's a medical doctor, judge in the Orphans Court, and he's like you. Meteorology just turned him on.
Yeah,
he becomes a meteorologist.
I was fascinated with it. But I wanted to go to college, but I really didn't have the funds. And then they had a little war going on at that time called Vietnam.
Yes, okay.
So once I finished my 2 years of college, I immediately got a 1A classification.
So for everyone who doesn't know, we used to have a military draft.
Right, military draft.
You got a deferment while you were at college,
and
2S.
I got my 1A, and when I got that, I went, uh-oh.
Uh-oh, that means you're on the list.
So I knew I was on the list. I ran over to the University of Maryland Baltimore County campus real quick and said, can I get in?
Register, help.
Yeah, because my deferment was about ready to go as far as college student deferment. Okay. And they said, sure, no problem. But I thought about it. I really didn't want to go there. You know, none of the courses there really appealed to me. So I almost on a spur of the moment went down to the recruiter down in the city.
Okay. And
went down there to talk to them. I talked to the Navy. I wanted to get in the Coast Guard.
Coast Guard was
didn't
tough
really
to
want to get in the
Marines.
Yeah, Coast Guard you couldn't get in at that time because of the big buildup. But I talked to the Air Force, and that guy smooth talked me. I liked it, and I got a delayed enlistment. I actually enlisted in June, but I didn't have to report until September.
Oh, so that's the summer break.
Yeah, I had a summer break.
Now,
and everything,
2 years, 3, 4. What was Air Force?
4 years for Air Force.
Right. So you have 4 years. So you go in with 2 years of college. You're a young kid. You're 20 years old.
Went in with 2 years of college, and my recruiter promised me that they would send me to meteorology school.
How did that work out?
That was just great. So they put me in security police. And when I got there, when I got to tech school and security police, they went, well, listen, when you're walking around that B-52, just tell us what the weather is.
Like. So, how many people do you know? I mean, it's almost comical. We're not mad about it. How many recruiters promise you the moon, and you're either 11 Bravo infantry or some unit where you know it was not sitting behind a desk?
And everybody in basic training swears they're going to go back and get their recruiter and strangle him, but it never happens. I mean, that's the way it was. So I think it's a lot better now.
So you graduate, you go to college, you do the same thing I did. I'm not mature enough.
Right, I didn't know what I really wanted.
Okay.
But when I got into security police, and I was very fortunate because my first duty base was over in the Philippines.
Let me back up a little bit.
Yep.
Let's talk about Air Force basic training. How long and where?
Air Force basic training, let's see. it was 6 weeks, I believe. We were supposed to have it at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas.
Okay.
But Lackland got everybody was breaking down with meningitis and coming down with meningitis.
So they closed it down.
So they closed that down and they sent us to Amarillo.
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever been to Amarillo, Texas.
It sounds like it's in the desert.
Oh, it's in the northern part of Texas. The neatest thing we had tumbleweeds going across the base all day long, and trying to keep your rooms spotlessly clean was impossible because of the dust and everything.
Now, I've heard the horror stories of the Marines and their basic training. I was Army basic training, which is, not that bad. How was Air Force basic training?
Air Force wasn't that bad. I mean...
you were on the gravy train.
Well, yeah, you're right, because the worst thing was we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
That was,
And as I tell everybody, I've told you before, the meals were great.
Oh,
I just love the Air Force food.
Air Force always feeds you
my goodness, it was delicious.
Okay.
But it was only 6 weeks, and then I went to a security police tech school.
So you got through the Air Force basic training, no big deal.
Food
wasn't bad, and then you go.
Then we go to the tech school, which also wasn't bad.
How long
I think that was maybe 12 weeks. I'm not sure.
And is that basically making a young private into a policeman?
Yeah, it's teaching us a trade, I guess, or teaching us.
Okay.
Not everybody went to tech school when they were a security policeman. I was fortunate I did.
How long was that?
That was 12 weeks, I believe.
Oh, that's good. So
and then after that, we got our duty assignment.
Now, when you go to be trained as a policeman, a lot of firearms or how to arrest people or how to break up fights?
It was the first time I had ever probably fired an M16, and then we carried the 38 revolvers. That was 1968.
Oh, okay.
So I enlisted in 68. Yeah, we got out in 72.
I was 66 to 69, so we're at the same time.
Yep.
So you're using the M16?
Yeah, using the M16s, we carried those. But I was in law enforcement for the most part on my assignment in the Philippines, so we carried the 38s for the most part. Yeah.
Now, were you trained in that in the training or not?
Yeah, it wasn't like the police training I got later on, but yes, we were trained at firearms.
So we get through our 3 months of Air Force police training,
right?
And then you're right to the Philippines.
Yeah, we got our whole class because
it's not the whole group.
At that time the Tet Offensive had just happened in Vietnam, so our whole class actually went to the Philippines because the Philippines Clark Air Force Base was the main support base for Vietnam.
Yes,
it was the main support base. We had of course all the MAC planes and supplies.
Thousands of men and women. Yes.
Thousands. Yes, I mean, we had the biggest airmen's club in the world. we had
only the Air Force was.
Yes, we had probably the biggest hospital also for the GIs because they were coming back from Vietnam. Every day I still remember the buses that would come back from the tarmac. They would travel at about 5 miles per hour. Huge buses with the wounded on them going to the hospital.
And stretchers and that type.
And we also had probably the biggest mortuary in the world too.
KIAs would come back.
Right, all the KIAs came to the Philippines first, and we had to guard that too.
So let's go to that. So what were your duties when you were there?
Had a lot of duties. We had, of course, the gate duties, controlling who was coming on and off the base.
That's just on the base. I need a pass or I need an ID.
Because all the towns were right off the base, right beyond the fence line. All the towns, the little Filipino towns, were out there. We actually had caribou wander on base, and we had to take care of it with a nightstick and get them to go back up.
Stay off the base.
Yeah, but we also had a communist faction over there. We called them the Hucks.
That were yes.
Yeah. And we were dealing with them. They were always coming on, committing armed robberies and everything on the base,
attacking the base
against our NCO clubs and banks and everything we had on there. So we had big security as far as money transport.
Did they force their way on, or would they just drive in?
They would just drive in or whatever, because civilians were allowed on the base too.
Okay.
So one thing I got to be in charge of was the pickup and transportation of the money from all, like the BX and the Airmen's Club and all these different venues.
Around.
Well, it was a Brinks truck, but we also had a guy with a 50 caliber machine gun following us around in a Jeep.
Oh, and they go after us.
And then we had another transport vehicle with 6 GIs, with 6 airmen with the rifles. So we were fully equipped. We had maybe 20 guys on a money pickup. We would get out, we'd set up a perimeter, we'd chase everybody around, and then I'd go with the bank bag and whatever.
Did anyone ever try to rob it?
Not us, no.
I was going to say,
that's when we developed that security. Before we did that, yes.
Really?
All the time.
Oh, that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it was fun.
So you did front gate, you helped with the security of the movement of money. Yeah. What else did they have you doing?
Let's see, what else did we do over there?
Would you ever go into the Philippines? Okay.
One of the more interesting jobs we had to guard the base dump.
The base dump.
The base dump was controlled, or it was in a village called Negrito Village. Yeah, trash dump, where the Air Force dumped all of their trash from the base. Right. Back in World War II, when MacArthur came back, they had a real hard time getting the Japanese off of Clark Air Force Base. Okay. And
they'd occupied it after they flew us out.
Yes, and the Marines, Army, whatever, they were getting slaughtered. They were getting slaughtered by the Japanese because they just couldn't shake the Japanese off the base. Okay. So MacArthur asked one of the local chiefs for help. It was in the Negrito Village. These were Filipinos. They were very small people, but they were ferocious warriors.
Like the
so he said, would you please help us secure this base? Because Negrito Village was right beside Clark Air Force Base. And they went, sure, we'll give you help. So they came in a matter of a couple nights. They came in with just bows and arrows, blowguns, knives, and they silently destroyed the Japanese. They just wiped out
Now, were they there when you were there, descendants?
Yes.
Oh, they were.
And that's getting us back to the trash dump. So MacArthur was very pleased, as you can imagine.
I imagine.
He wanted to give them a biggest amount of money and everything, and they went, no, we don't want that. And he says, well, what do you want? He says, I want your base dump. Very smart people.
It's like Vietnam.
Very smart people, because he knows what Americans do.
We throw away
They throw everything away. Yes. So the Negritos would go through there, get all the scrap metal, whatever they could, make trinkets, make whatever they could make, sell it back to the GIs, sell it, They made tons of money.
Well, in Vietnam, we used to have sandals made out of the tires we got rid of.
Yeah.
I still wear, I have a replica of it here. The big thing was the GIs in Pleiku were all wearing peace symbols. They would go to our trash and out of metal or wood or whatever and make peace symbols and stuff like that.
Yeah, great. So the reason we had to guard the dump was because sometimes some nefarious people were bringing a truckload of M16s down there also, throwing in a trash dump, and then they would pick them out and black market them and everything. That's why we had to go down there. Oh, okay. So we had to, for 8 hours, we got to stand,
drive around the dump.
Not even drive, it was foot patrol. We had to walk amongst the dump.
What rank were you? Are you a 5 or 4?
No, I probably had 1 stripe on my arm.
Okay.
So we had to go down there in the heat of the day and everything. Every truck that was dumped, all the trash came out. We had to be right there to see what was coming out of the truck. You're talking about smelling bad.
What duty that was.
It was hot, in the rainy season. We had to be, but it was okay. We were young, we didn't matter.
When you're 20,
but the
22.
neat thing, the chief got to meet us all. The chief who dealt with MacArthur and everything, he got to meet us all.
Oh, wow.
He would invite us all down there in the evening, all us guys who had to work that detail, and give us free beer, free food. It was fantastic. We loved it.
That's a great deal.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, like I said, we had the same thing. What you and I take for granted and throw in our trash, the Vietnamese would make teapots out of cups, and like you said, and sell it to the GI at outrageous prices. Hey, you're buying a tomato soup can. So you had front gate duty, you had
that, and a lot of other stuff too. I mean,
how long
we did have a couple bombings that we had to deal with. I was standing on
who was bombing?
The communist hucks again. They would bomb the bars right off base. I was standing in the main gate. I was in charge of the main gate one day. I think I had the rank of sergeant by then. And all of a sudden, boom, the bar right off base just blew away. Yeah, blew up, killing quite a few people in there. And then people were running on the base, and it was quite a mess. Yeah, that's the type of stuff.
Now, did you have the Philippines? I'm sure you did. American bases tend to attract a village or a city around it, which are bars for the GIs, places to eat, etc., etc. Same situation?
We did. We had Angeles City, which was right off the base, all the bars.
Okay.
And I got to work town patrol, foot patrol down there too.
You'd actually walk through the
We walked through.
that must have been
we walked
scary.
through that. I think I told you a story the other night. If there was a melee out in the street, there was a fight or bar fight or whatever,
you had to break it up.
we would walk the town patrol with a Philippine constabulary.
And you actually were walking.
We were walking with them, yeah, and they would carry submachine guns. We just had pistols. And if there was a problem, we'd run up to it, and he would just lift his submachine gun in the air and go, da, 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 da. Everybody would scatter.
And these are GIs?
He was Filipino.
Okay.
He was Filipino.
No, but I mean the people.
Oh yeah, the people on the street. There was, with Filipinos and everybody's mixing. So
now, Bill Moore, also an Air Force person who you know. I'm assuming that you guys would work kind of a 9 to 5 day, and then you can go in civvies and go in town?
Yeah, that wasn't exactly us because, like I said, we were over there during right after the Tet Offensive.
Okay.
And we had a major buildup. And we were actually working 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 30 straight days. And then you get 1 day off.
1 day off?
1 day off.
12?
And of course, we got rip-roaring drunk on that 1 day off.
Well, not only that, but you're 12 hours. You got to sleep 8 hours. You got to eat, et cetera, et cetera.
To me, it was good because I had just gotten married before
you were married
I left for the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
So I had the loneliness factor going on. So working 12 hours on, 12 hours off was probably a good thing for me.
Now, how long were you actually in the Philippines?
16 months.
Oh, yeah. So now, did your wife get to ever come over? No.
No, because I didn't have the rank.
Okay.
You know, I was just
was there an R&R for you guys like we got in Vietnam?
No, we did not have that either.
Okay. So you were stuck there for 18 months.
But we had the good food. We didn't have the R&R.
Believe me, we did not have good food. Okay.
So, but it was interesting. And then with the, at that time too, of course, the whole racial stuff was going on back then. It was a very tough time. And downtown we had the black bars where the black airmen would go to.
Civilians don't understand this.
And then we'd have the white bars. It was totally separated. And so the airmen would go down there in the evening, and at night, they'd all come back about midnight when they had to be back on base. And totally drunk. And
you're on the front
they're going to war with each other.
Oh, God.
So there was always fights at the main gate and on the buses and everything. So what they did with us, the buses that were taking them back on base, since they were fighting on the buses all the time, they put one of us, security policemen, on the bus to settle everything down.
Nobody wanted that.
They made us take our guns off.
Really?
All they let us carry was a balsa wood nightstick.
So they were afraid someone would steal your gun from you.
And so and they gave us a radio that didn't work. And our job was to make sure that no fights occurred on the bus while they took them back. Yeah, good luck, you're right. And it was horrible. That was a horrible duty. I remember that because I always have to go break up fights.
That's what I'm asking. Did you have to physically go?
Yeah, we had to jump in and break up the fights. We'd have to go into the bars downtown and break up their fights.
Just one of you on the bus?
Yes, just one of us on the bus. And I had a melee one night. I mean, I was getting pounded. Everybody was fighting. And the bus driver was scared to death. He's a little Filipino. And I said, take us to security police headquarters. He did, and I'm on the radio screaming, we need help, we need help. It didn't work. And so, dealing with all that. So, but we had to deal with the racial part of it.
Was it overall your 18 months in the Philippines good duty, bad duty?
Yeah, it was good duty. It really was good duty. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
And you were what, a 22?
I actually made a very, very good Filipino friend who was also security police airman. And he took me to his hometown there in the Philippines. Got to meet his family.
So you got to meet the real Filipinos.
They just fed us and wined us and dined us. And it was funny, the custom in his village was if you had a male friend, best friends, you would hold hands with him the whole time.
Well,
so he grabbed my hand and we walked through the village.
You're freaking out.
I mean, I was a little like, what are we doing?
What are we doing?
But no, and I learned a lot about the customs and the people. And it really makes you appreciate living in this country big time too, because you see how poor some of the rest of the world is.
So now, how was his home? His
village
I know nothing about Philip.
It was.
I mean,
it was a beautiful village.
Okay.
I mean, it was dirt roads and everything, and oxen walking around and all that. They were very proud of him for being in the military, and they loved us too, because the Filipinos loved the American people because of World War II. But no, we got treated like gold, really did.
Yeah. So you're 18, now you still must have had about 18 more months of service?
Yeah, actually it was 16 months over there.
Okay.
And then when I came back, I got stationed. We got to fill out dream sheets. You remember what they were?
You get three choices.
3 choices.
Good luck.
I wanted everything. I wanted all the bases in the South, right?
Really? Okay.
Wasn't specific enough. They sent me to South Dakota.
They just didn't get the second part.
They didn't get the second part.
So you go from the warm Philippines.
Right.
What was South Dakota
South
like?
Dakota was, it's a beautiful state. I love South Dakota. Excuse me, because of the Black Hills. And
what were you doing there?
Security police.
But I mean, missiles, or what do we have in South Dakota?
We were SAC Air Force Base, which is Strategic Air Command. So we had, we were one of the only bases that had B-52 bombers.
Are you in the mountains, or no?
Yeah, we were pretty high up elevation. We were by the Black Hills.
Okay.
Right by Mount Rushmore. You could see Mount Rushmore right from
you
the
can
base.
actually see it.
Yeah. So we had the B-52s. We had the missiles.
Oh, so you're guarding all this.
We're guarding the missiles.
We're talking ICBM
and we had also the AWACS, which is the radar planes that go up there. Yeah. Okay. So we were the only base to have all 3 of those.
Oh, wow.
But SAC was so different from, I was on a MAC base in the Philippines. SAC was so strict. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, it's like all day long.
Okay.
And
because you're talking about pilots with nuclear weapons at their disposal, so you had to be pretty strict,
we saw them take off every day, you know, flying over the gates, these huge B-52s. But I was lucky again because I stayed in law enforcement. I didn't have to walk around the planes. I didn't have to walk, run around missile sites and all that.
Now, were you an E5? Were you an NCO at that point?
E4, Buck Sergeant.
Oh, Buck
but I got to do base patrol,
security,
law enforcement. Law enforcement duties.
Now, I've got to ask you, South Dakota winters. You told me, but tell the audience, good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah, unless you're from there, it's like probably living in
Antarctica,
or what's the place that snows all? Boston, up in there in that area.
Okay.
But they were very cold, and temperatures would get down to 20, 30 degrees below zero.
Below zero, yeah.
And every night we didn't have garages where we lived. I lived in the city, and we didn't have garages, so we had to plug in our engine warmers
from freezing,
and plug them into the house and keep the block from freezing.
Is your wife with you at this point?
Yes.
And you're off-base?
Off-base, we had off-base housing, yeah.
So you have kind of a
It was
normal
great.
life.
We had a really nice house. We paid a whopping $80 a month.
Rent.
And we had this big house with like 3 bedrooms and everything. It was great. And
beautiful country.
And we were getting off-base housing allowance. So we were saving money. It was amazing.
Yeah. How did your wife, did she enjoy this?
She enjoyed it.
Because this is a Baltimore girl,
Yeah, Baltimore girl. We explored around, of course, the Black Hills. We fished there a lot and went to all the, Mount Rushmore, and it's just so much to see.
And you were there a year and a half, a year?
Yeah, almost 2.5 years, I think, we spent there.
Now, let me just interrupt. Do we ever have intrusions on bases like that? I mean, or were they so well protected?
They were so well. That base was so well protected because of all the stuff we had on it. But yeah, we didn't have any problems with that one.
Okay. Yeah. Now, spit and polish outfit, but
big time.
Oh, really?
Big time spit and polish.
Uniform has got to look good. Yes. Do you wear the scarf and the beret? Or?
We didn't have berets back then.
Okay.
We just had the regular police hats. And, did get to meet General Westmoreland.
Did you really?
Yeah, I got to guard his plane when he came in. He was, I think he had just been fired, to tell you the truth. He came in and it was like 20 below zero. And I'm standing out there with my buddy. We're just guarding his plane. We were just shivering and freezing. He got off the plane, came back from the officers' club. A bunch of generals and colonels were trailing him. He was in his fatigues. He was all tan and everything in his fatigues. And there was a whole line of generals, for him to shake hands with before he left. Yeah. He bypassed them all. He came right up to me.
Did he really?
Son, how are you? Where are you from?
Right. Good for Westy.
Are you cold? But it was very cool.
I served in Korea with a guy who served under Westmore and said exactly what you said.
Very personal.
He went right to the enlisted.
Yeah, he did. He went right to the enlisted. Talked to us for 5 minutes or so. Patted us on the shoulder and got on his plane. And he was out of there.
So Westmoreland was not a bad.
No, I liked him. I liked him a lot.
Well, the person I was in Korea said he was just an old country boy, got an education at Westmoreland.
He was put in a very bad scene, very bad place, and he did what he had to do.
The best he could do. Yeah. So were you discharged when you were in South Dakota?
I was discharged about 2 months before I was discharged. We had a really bad flash flood in Rapid City, South Dakota. 1970, I think, was the year.
And this destroyed the city?
It destroyed, went right through the middle of the city, killed hundreds of people.
This is serious
Killed
stuff.
a couple of my GI friends.
Oh, really?
We lost a lot of people on that, and we had to. My wife and I were missing actually for weeks. We couldn't get on base. We didn't have cell phones. All the lines
were down. Were all flooded and everything?
We had no way to contact the base or anything. My wife ended up going and volunteering for a radio station. It was on emergency broadcast, and I went downtown and volunteered shoveling mud out of people's houses. But we couldn't get on base for weeks.
You're kidding me?
Yeah.
The roads were that bad.
And we were on a missing list. And
no phone service?
No, we had nothing. We had nothing. We were like out in the middle. Where we live, it was like out in the middle of farmlands and everything. We were completely cut off.
Your wife saying, Bob, I want to go back to Baltimore.
Well, I got discharged probably a few months after that, and then a couple weeks after that, I started at the University of Maryland.
So so you have military service, and you finish up a degree
got my law enforcement degree, University of Maryland.
Okay.
I did that in a couple of years.
That was a hot major for a while, because there was a law enforcement LEAP grants or something that they were giving students.
Yeah, it was great. I had the.
What years were you at McCollins?
University of Maryland, 1972 to 1974.
Yeah, I graduated in '74. Yeah, so we were there.
I think I remember you.
I was going to hide behind the booth. Okay, all right. So. Now, let's people, you had 30 years with PG County? Or
I had 21 years, Prince George's County Police Department.
And went all the way to a lieutenant.
Made lieutenant, retired out of narcotics.
Now, what does, for the uninformed, myself, lieutenant, you have like a platoon of men or a watch? Or what?
I actually had, my first job as lieutenant, I was Bureau Patrol.
Okay.
So I had my sector, I had a couple sectors that I was in charge of, and the men and women in that. Then I got transferred to narcotics.
Yeah, how'd you get narcotics? Just because of the madness? Or?
No, several commanders had asked for me.
Oh, you were good. You were good.
Yeah, they thought I'd done a good job. So yeah, I got I had street narcotics. I had the street narcotics.
That's arresting people on the street, selling and buying?
Yes, and that was a very active job, because I was involved doing that with them.
Because everyone came out of D.C. or went to PG County?
Well, you know, the crack cocaine, I was a drug task force sergeant in the Bureau Patrol when the crack cocaine issue happened in 1986.
Okay.
Overnight, boom, we went from one type of drug, heroin was the biggest thing.
It was sad what happened to America.
And then crack cocaine just happened almost overnight, and the homicide rate went skyrocket. And
well, the murders and the theft.
It was amazing. So they created a drug task force, which they put me in charge of as a sergeant. And
are you in charge of the whole
made
unit?
So many arrests. It was incredible.
That was, I think, one of America's biggest tragedies. The war on drugs. I won't get involved in the politics of it, but it was just lack of self-discipline of individuals using drugs. I'm sorry, you get high on drugs and get PCP,
so much money
you start shooting at a cop or try to beat up a cop. No way.
Yeah, been there. Yeah.
So you survived that.
Survived that.
Now, what got you to Queen Anne's County?
After the police department, I wanted to learn a trade, so went to tech school for heating and air conditioning.
Did you really? I didn't know.
And went into the heating and air conditioning field for a few years.
Because you're a young man. What are you, 50?
I was in my 40s. I was in my late 40s, So did that for a few years. And then somebody somewhere, one of my classes I was taking for heating and air conditioning told me about home inspectors. I said, home inspector, that sounds interesting. Cool, that sounds cool. So I looked into that. And after I did 3 or 4 years as a heating and air guy, I went to
home
inspections. Went to school for that.
Okay.
And had a great 20-year career with that.
And that was here or across the bridge?
That was across the bridge.
Okay.
And mainly worked in Old Town, Virginia.
Sure.
Montgomery County.
Yes, where I grew up.
Some in Prince George's County, where I lived. All over Northern Virginia. You had a big area. Worked with 2 other guys. We had our own company. And it was a great career.
And bingo, you're here.
And bingo, I'm here. After I retired, finally, when I was 70.
Oh, 70.
And my wife and I said, we don't want to stay in, I'm from Boone.
Yeah, an urban area, suburban area.
We don't want to stay in this urban area any longer. Let's see what's going on across the bridge. So we actually looked down in Lewis, Delaware. That's where we really wanted to go.
Okay.
We picked out a house down there and everything. We stayed overnight down there after we picked out the house, celebrating, and the traffic was so bad. And like in the end of October, I said, I wanted to move away from some place like this. So we came back to Centerville just because my daughter lives here.
Oh, good, okay.
And we started looking around, and we drove into a neighborhood and went, wow, this looks nice.
I like it.
So
I'm glad you made that decision.
Yeah, we found
I
another
have someone to ride a bike with, someone to have coffee with. Well, Bob, look at our time's up. First of all, thank you. No, that's all right. Thank you for your service.
Sure.
And I'm glad you're in Queen Anne's County. And thank you for trying to fix my back from my bike riding. Okay. We'd like to thank you all for watching. My name's Fred McNeil. My time's up. Thank you for your time, and we're going to see you next time. And thank all of you who served in the military service.